as Professor Carnes sort of gave a brief outline, we are at such a pivotal moment in our history. We are the moderate Democrats. We are, I think, the most level-headed faction in that we support democracy, but we are cognizant of the fact that democracy in our time, given how fragile our state has become, should be approached in such a manner. So we think the radicals have gone too far, and we are trying to foster a healing, a very healthy environment for Athens, given that we just came out of war. And clearly, there are a lot of things we need to figure out. And these radicals want us to focus on punishing the 30 tyrants, which we believe we should just not be doing. Not to say what they've done is not wrong, but we want to build Athens up. We want to focus our energy into building our economy so that our children are not starving, so that our women are clothed, so that our men have food to eat, so that should we be in another war, we're not left wanting. So I'm going to add into the chat our just something for you guys to read so that we can understand better the role. Don't know why it won't let me add it. Okay. So whilst I'm still waiting to add, okay, so like I mentioned, we are for the reconciliation agreement. This, I think, will be important for us to gain a better understanding of what that would mean. Also would help us, like I said, focus our energy on building Athens rather than focusing on our past. So does anyone have any thoughts, any comments? Also, just as a note that since even though we are Democrats, we do support censorship. I know that the aristocrats might want to come and argue that we are putting democracy at risk by doing that. But I think it's important to note that right now our democracy is very fragile and we need to be able to maintain it before we can start editing it and leaving things out. We need to have a firm understanding of what this democracy is. So I'm still trying to add into the chat. I don't know why but I could share my screen so long and we could just have it on hand so everyone can read and see as we go on. Share screen, okay. So our objective in this game is to pass the reconciliation agreement. We want to be able to prohibit Athenians from filing lawsuits against the 30 tyrants, so those are people who went against us during the Spartan War, and we want to prohibit people from mentioning their wrongdoings. All this is in an aim and bid to ensure that we are focusing on our future. Our future is building Athens, making sure our democracy is strong, our economy is strong, we have food on the table, and we can feed and shelter and clothe ourselves. So I think it's important right now if we could get people to sort of throw in their 2 cents about why, or arguments that we could propose during the assembly of why this might be something worth considering, because other factions want to punish the 30 tyrants. They want to waste resources into torturing them, or further dividing the Athenian democracy, which is, as we already know, very fragile and actually it's in a place that it's never been before. So I think the question for us to now discover is how would we go about convincing people that our best effort should be at bettering our future rather than focusing on our past. Also, if we could, when we go back into actually you guys could do it now, if you could change your names with just mods in the beginning of your name so that people know which faction you're belonging to, so that should you want to contribute to the assembly, people would know which faction you're speaking and representing. So you would just rename yourself with mod at the beginning and everyone would know that you're a moderate Democrat.
How do we do that?
So you can just when you click on yourself, you can see the little 3 dots that are near you. Can we all see them?
Yeah.
then you would just rename. Rename is one of the options. And then you can just put MOD at the beginning, and that should rename you to the name of the faction that you're representing. And we are the Moderate Democrats. Is everyone good with that? Okay, perfect.
Have the 30 tyrants been punished in any way?
No, they haven't. Some of them fled, some of them ran away, obviously scared of what we would do to them, but the rest stayed. So some ran away, but the majority of them stayed and have been law-abiding citizens of Athens.
Do they have the same rights as other citizens?
So no, they can't do things like vote, but they can live and work, but obviously not higher paying positions. They do the basic jobs, but they can't vote, but they are living and basically functioning in our economy, but are not privy to voting.
Is there a chance that they could band together and try to take power again?
Well, that's what other factions might say, that maybe that's the reason why we should punish them. But our belief as moderate Democrats is if we truly make them feel like Athens is their state and that they're citizens and belong in Athens, we don't think they would do that. In fact, it would be in our best interest to have them as Athenians, because then we can use them in our army, given that we've lost a lot of men. We've been fighting a lot of wars. So having them would be beneficial to us in that regard. But that might be a possibility. And I think an argument we must be able to counter should other factions bring it up.
What about the sons of the tyrants?
The sons of the tyrants.
Do the sons of the tyrants have full citizenship rights?
No.
Or do they also carry the limited rights of the tyrants themselves?
Yes, they carry limited rights. Only people born of Athenian blood can vote. So since they are not born of
any of the
blood, they cannot vote.
Because they were enemies of the state at the time.
Yes,
Okay.
and their forefathers are not Athenian men.
Got it.
Okay. So in a sense, they're second-class citizens.
Basically, yes.
Okay. The radicals, I assume, want to banish the tyrants.
Yes.
Not even have them living in Athens. Is that correct?
Yes, or torture them. Who knows what evil they want to do to them.
All right.
Yeah.
But they don't even want the limited citizenship. Are there any of the factions, the other factions, maybe the oligarchs, who wish to restore full citizenship to the tyrants?
Ooh, I think that would be like another day in the assembly. They do try and talk about giving them citizenship, but this one is focused more on, are we forgiving them, and are we trying to forget and not mention or basically censor speech around the 30 tyrants? We never want 2 minutes, so we need to get at least 2 people to speak about this, but we don't ever want the wrongdoings to be mentioned, and we want to forgive them. Could we get like 2 people who might be willing to give arguments, if they have, based off of why we believe that reconciliation would benefit Athenian state right now?
Well, I think the argument that I could make is that we only have so much time and energy, and we have citizens who are starving. Let's focus on that.
Okay, so
are we Athenians? Hello?
yes, we are.
Have we secured promises from them not to do anything if they remain and become second-class citizens?
Yes, I think that we have.
And what have they promised?
So I think we're going based on the assumption that if they have stayed, them staying is them renouncing citizenship of the 30.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Someone has their hand up. I can't see people's
Yes.
name. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are we citizens subsidizing with our money slavery, as was said? Do we have slaves that we're paying?
Some of us are rich enough to have, but some of us aren't. Most oligarchs have.
Slavery was a fact of life.
Yeah.
So we have both slaves and second-class citizens now, and we're trying to rebuild our democracy.
Yes. So far I have Janet who says they'll be willing to speak. Could I get just at least 2 more people so that we can have a strong argument to pose?
I'm sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand without just raising my hand. So what's the purpose of government? It's for the betterment of most citizens. I would make that argument that by torturing, we're not bettering anybody. But by providing food and clothing, we are.
Would you be willing to speak on that? I think
I could say that.
Okay, thank you.
So hi, hello, I'm Caitlin. Welcome to the Radical Democrats, the obvious winners of this game today, and we will make sure of that. So, what's a Radical Democrat? You guys heard some things from Professor Carnes. Hello, more people, I love it. Hello, so welcome to Radical Democrats. I'm Caitlin. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we need to strategize, what we need to come up with, because we have a lot of people against us. So did everyone get their what's it called, their sheet that says who they are? If you have not, I'll throw it in the chat real quick.
Yes, we have it. I have it.
So yeah, just in general, hello again. We are going to talk about what we're doing here today and how we are different than everyone else and what we should do. So the goal out of this is I want to make sure everyone can get a chance to speak and maybe have 1 or 2 like big speakers that can yell at a bunch of people later on. So for a quick lesson, we helped restore Athenian democracy. We helped fight against these people that wanted to overthrow Athens. And now there's a law that's telling us we can't speak out about it. And we have to pretend it never happened, which obviously is unjust. We worked so hard. Now, why do we have to just not talk about it? Why do we have to pretend it never happened? So we're gonna have a lot of people who are going to disagree with us. So we need to start coming up with a game plan. Does anyone have any maybe quick ideas of what we should do, what we should say, anything? Go for it, Catherine.
It's dangerous to forget because then you don't know what to watch out for to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Exactly. I love it. Love enthusiasm. But that's perfect. Again, it's dangerous. Why are we forgetting about this? It just happened too. It's not like this was years and years ago. Why would we forget about it all of a sudden? I love that. We'll put that on the side. We'll write it down. I have it written down on the side. Anyone else? Okay,
Yeah,
Miss Crane. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Miss Katie. Miss Crane, you're next.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
I think that we have to create sort of a public memory of this and have monuments to, you know, the wrongdoings and of the oligarchs and, you know, public spaces and a lot of writing and, you know, sending out information. This has to be brought into the, you know, into the culture and the social activities of Athens.
Perfect.
So we got our work cut out for us.
Yes, we do. Miss Crane?
If there's no punishment or nothing happens as a result, what's to prevent other people from following that example? That if one group can do it and there's no ramifications, what's to make people play by the rules?
Perfect. I love that. Miss Fink. Go ahead.
I thought you said that we're not allowed, the past is not allowed to be brought up.
Well, that's what this law is. It's to determine whether or not the law should be brought up. And we want to remember history.
Okay.
We want this.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah. But how can you point to the malfeasance of the past without bringing up the past?
Well, we want to bring up the past. We don't
I
want to forget.
understand that, but, so now that
Break the rule.
we have to overturn this rule.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. That's the thing. We really want to make sure the past is remembered, and how can we not learn from the past, and how can we develop a better future if we can't talk about the past? You know, these people, they make up really bad arguments for this. I don't get it. You know, why would we forget the past?
you can't.
You can't. What? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. That's why.
On January 6th too, yeah.
Exactly. That's why we're
We gotta prevent an insurrection, right?
There you go. Perfect. And that's why we're the best, because we're the smartest, obviously. We know what's gonna happen. These people, they're selfish. That's all it is. Anyone else? Any good points?
It's not just us remembering the past, it's also if the perpetrators think they can get away with it, they may come back and try it again.
Exactly. It's a good thing to keep in note that the people that started this revolution were Athenians. They were part of us. They were our family, our brethren, if you will. And now they did a 180. They tried to overthrow us, and now they're completely fine with just forgetting about everything that happened. We can't let that happen. We cannot let that happen. I'm going to try to send out the roll sheet. It didn't work. Hold on. The big thing is we're going to have a big argument in a couple of minutes. And the thing with the argument is I want to have a good couple of speakers. Whoever wants to just say what we've been saying. You know, there's a big thing. We can't forget about it. We can't let history repeat itself. It's dangerous to do so. It's dangerous to forget. Do I have any volunteers to hold the torch to go out and yell at these people for us? Would anyone like to start arguing for us? If it's okay, you don't have to start. But would anyone like to try? Anyone?
All right, I will, but.
Amazing, amazing. Keep in mind, you don't have to speak, but please speak. Please. If you don't, I will speak for you. In my class, I have been known to argue a lot, so we're in good hands.
Okay, good. You start the argument.
Okay.
I will support your argument.
Amazing. Again, the point of this is we have to try to convince people that they're wrong, we're right, because we are right, obviously.
I like the idea of my, if I do say so myself, because I was reading a little more about this, of creating it in public, the memory of what happened through, newspapers and flyers and public forums for speaking and monuments, to keep it there, that we don't want this to happen again, and we cannot forget about it.
I agree.
It'll sneak back up on us.
Yes, Ms. Crittel.
You can call me Kath.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's also important, not that I'm being informed by the recent past here, but that people who are greedy and who have a lot of stuff and like to have a lot of stuff don't want to give it up, and they're not going to want to give it up again. And they obviously were doing what they were doing before to try to get more stuff. And we can't pretend that they're not the same people.
Exactly. I agree completely. See, these are the arguments we need to bring up. Just if anyone makes an accusation towards us that we think is immoral and just wrong, speak about it, because we're going to have this big chance in a little bit. And I love it. I love this. I love that we have these ideas. We just want to talk about it. We just want to let our opinions known. That's all. Perfect. Any go ahead, Miss Kiki.
I'm just thinking about the accuracy of the record, because if it's forgotten, the accuracy will not be there. It will just be someone else's version. And if we right now feel strongly about it, then aside from the statuary and so forth, the written record will be very important.
Good point. Good point. These great points. Written records have to be important. Public records are important. We want to make sure we don't forget our history, because how can that stop someone else from doing the same things? All of these are immaculate points. I love this.
Don't to repeat it.
Exactly.
We just have to keep repeating it and screaming it out.
Yes. Okay, we have 2 minutes. This is perfect. I love this. Yelling at people about what we know. I know all about that.
So you think that strategy will work, that we just kind of pound this, you know?
I think it's best to let our opinions known, and if they disagree, that's their fault, but ultimately we're right.
So
And
we have to be argumentative about
exactly,
this.
because a lot of people are going to disagree with us, because one main group, I'm not going to say which one, the oligarchs, you didn't hear that from me. They are very, exactly, they are very for this agreement because they may have started the revolution a little bit. They may have been a part of it. So we're going to have some heavy hitters against us. So being argumentative, letting our intuitions known, letting what we believe known is going to be immensely grateful, immensely helpful, especially for the people like the indeterminates who don't have a faction. And so we can bring their numbers to us. And that's going to help us in the long run when we start to vote. Remember, we don't want this agreement. This agreement is against everything we stand for as a group, because again, we are right. We are always right, and we are amazing. So why would we agree with this?
Excuse me, are the 30 tyrants basically the oligarchs?
So the 30 tyrants were a group supported by the oligarchs, and maybe a few of them were stretched in there. But mainly a lot of the now Socratics and oligarchs, a lot of them supported these 30 tyrants, and maybe one or two Socratics led the 30 tyrants as well with the oligarchs. So the other factions really supported this, and now we have to fight against it because we were the ones that stopped the revolution. Yes, Mr. McCann.
I think we have to remind everyone that Athens is about democracy and what democracy means.
Exactly. That is the best point. We are Athenian, we are Democrats, and what is democracy without knowing our past, and that can help our future. This breaker room does close in less than a minute, so I just want to make some final points. This is great. I love all of you. I love the thoughts we were coming up with. We are going to win. We just need to be loud, need to be argumentative. We need to be who we are, which are Athenian radical Democrats.
My name is Kendall. I will be running Socratic Faction. I'm excited for everyone to be here today. I took reacting just in the fall of 2020, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. And I was a Socratic in the game. We played this game. And so the Socratics are obviously followers of Socrates, and we really care about ensuring that justice prevails. Hopefully, I'm not sure if you guys got any of Plato's Republic, but that's pretty much what we based our philosophy on. One of my fellow colleagues played Plato. And so, yeah, hopefully you all get a chance to read the rule sheet. The purpose of our purpose is to support this reconciliation agreement so we can forget the past and move on to unite together to make a better Athens, because the radical Democrats are simply making decisions based off of emotions and not logic. And us Socratics care a lot about logic and intelligence and philosophy. And so that's kind of what the basis of our arguments are going to be. Does anyone have any thoughts, questions?
I have a question. Is our argument supposed to be done with questions and answers? Are we supposed to follow? Okay.
Well, you can kind of frame it however you want. That's definitely something my colleagues and I did, posing questions and answering it like in a Socratic dialogue. And that's definitely a fun way to do it, I think, to kind of mimic the work of Socrates and Plato.
I have another question. So I don't know how you guys picked this, but I can see we're living this right now. And I'm in this, you put me in this Socratic faction, which is arguing, well, let's just put the past behind us and move on. And I am not Mitch McConnell. I do not want to do that. I can't even begin to argue that that's a logical, reasonable, and appropriate way to proceed. You know, hindsight is 2020.
So yeah, a big part of the game, I get it. for one of my games, I had to play the British Governor General of India. So like I understand arguing things that are obviously wrong. But you really have to get in the mindset of Socrates. So in the mindset of Socrates, what he believes and what his followers believe. And so in Plato's Republic, everything is about justice. And right now in the assembly, there are normal people, people who haven't had the education that they need to do to make these decisions. And so the radical Democrats are making decisions based off of emotion. They're angry about the past, but we have to think logically about it. And what the Socratics believe in this situation is that we need to move forward, and it is not just to harm anyone, because what the radical Democrats want to do is execute anyone who's involved with 30 tyrants.
Okay, so then, but knowing what we know now about and we won't call them Democrats, we'll just call them the base, who are not operating out of logic and not operating out of reason and sense. We can't get anywhere by talking to them. So what are we Socratics supposed to do?
We're trying to educate everyone and give insight on what it's like to be the educated philosophers of a society. Our goal is to slowly chip at the democracy and make it more so that only educated people are ruling. So we don't like the random choosing of jobs. Barb, go.
There's a possible parallel in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. I mean, it seems very difficult to do something like that, to forgive essentially people who are your enemies and have wronged you. But somehow Mandela convinced them that was the only way forward. I don't think it was a perfect solution, but it's a demonstration that one can forgive one's enemies.
I also, for me, found as I was reading this Socratic Faction briefing that one way to unlock it was getting in this mindset of, I hate to say it, but intellectual elitism, and believing that, that's what this position is. You're not an elite because you have a lot of money. You're an elite because you're educated and you know better and have better judgment about what's fairer. So the idea would be, let's start with a clean slate, and then we'll be the ones who, have the understanding of philosophy enough to make moral choices moving forwards, and we won't get in this situation again. That was how I read it. I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I read it that way too, but then I come bumping up against, then we, the intellectual elite, are just another elite. And how do we decide who are the intellectual elites? So it boils down to, well, there's not much difference eventually between a random lottery and self-proclaimed elites. And without some other let's say, objective reference book, reference point, reference code to refer back to as to what is intelligence and what is philosophy and what is good and justice and right. It's just replacing the tyrant's view of what is right with our view of what is right. So I can't even begin to play this game.
Ruth, I think you bring up a good point, but the thing is that the difference between an elite that's an intellectual is that you welcome others joining you. The people, the zero-sum concept, as we all know in terms of money, is that if you want to be wealthy, it's the foundation of it is for a lot of people to be poor. That's how wealth works. But the structure of elitism of intellect is different. Elites do not lose anything by everybody becoming smarter. It just increases the pool. So I think there's a huge difference between an elite of intellectual and an elite of money, or an elite in terms of like the Spartans were in terms of structuring their society on the military, because that's what Hitler did, and many other over the thousands of years. I think there's a huge difference. And then the other thing I wanted to say before you brought up that part is that I think that when you very first comment was just so amazing to me, is how can you stomach this, do this, is that I think compartmentalizing is how I consider how our local and state and our federal government works in the United States. We have to compartmentalize. We have to learn to compromise. I like this particular faction that I was assigned to, and Kendall is guiding us on, so she knows more about it than I do, my little bit of reading that they sent. But I like the fact that there has to be a way of compromising with people that you really don't like, or else we're just gonna, in this country, go the ways of the Roman Empire and die. So anyway, I just wanted, that was my thought.
Yeah, can I ask two questions, please? One is, can we bring in an argument like the reconciliation effort in South Africa, even though, of course, they happened much later? Can we bring them into our arguments to the assembly? And where is the statement that people are talking about?
So the statement should have been emailed to you, but I can try to send it in the chat. It was just the roll sheet, but I'll try to send it in the chat. And then two, theoretically, no, since we're like supposed to be in 400 BCE.
That's right.
Obviously, no, this isn't as intense as the class. Like we had to write essays and it was more, but I would say to try to stay as much in, and obviously you can make references. I mean, Professor Carnes was like, you can make, snarky references, but I think in general, definitely try to stick to, Oh, okay. So a couple things. I encourage everyone to use the chat to say points. That's something that I did a lot in my class. We use the chat to go back and forth. And also, does everyone know how to raise hands in terms of?
You said you wanted people to put Socratic in their name, and not everybody has done so.
Oh yeah, if you can hover over your face, and if you see the top right, there are 3 dots, and you can rename your name. It would definitely be great if you could put Socratic in the top, just so the president of the assembly is making sure to call on every faction. So yeah, I think the important thing is that everyone, I mean, that's one of the hard parts of this game, is really trying to get in the mindset of something that you probably completely disagree with. It's definitely difficult, but you just have to force yourself. It can be kind of fun playing the bad guy sometimes. But yeah, does anyone have any ideas of like specific arguments they want to make?
You said this was the foundation from my notes I just took when you did your introduction, was the philosophy in terms of Plato's Republic, but the foundation is justice for our group. Is that correct? Could you elaborate on that a little bit more in terms of the world? We're stepping into a world 2,400 years ago as scholars joining you, but you're in school now. So for us, as you can see, we're all thinking about South Africa, we're thinking about Trump, we're thinking about our world. Help us get into your world, please, because otherwise that's what you're going to get from us, is the contemporary.
Yes. Okay, I'll do it quickly. So basically, the whole Socratic faction, for my class, we just read Plato's Republic, and based off of that, which is Socratic, which is basically what Socrates, it's all of Socratic dialogue. And so Socrates defines justice as those doing the role that they were meant to do. So basically, if you were born to do you do the role that you are best at doing. So the educated elites are best at ruling, the farmers are best at farming, etc. So we believe that in a government, there should be a hierarchy, and that justice is everyone doing what they are best suited for. Additionally, in this case, harming others, because for example, the Democrats want to execute the 30 tyrants, etc. That is not justice. It is not justice. Eye for an eye is not justice. And so that is very quickly a summary of just kind of getting in that world. Creating that social hierarchy is really important.
So you guys got a little taste of what we're about. We're the farmers, the landowners. We are the people of Athens who run businesses. We're not followers of Socrates who sit around all day and talk. We're not those crazy radical Democrats who are trying to I don't know what kind of chaos they're trying to bring to our fair city, but we are. Gotcha. We'll do raising hands or chat. Your glorious voice will be heard. So now we're not a big fan of democracy, but we support our government. When the war came, it was our businesses that created the revenue to support the war effort. Where do you think those triremes came from? It's from our hard work, our labor. But our government failed, democracy failed, and now, after all the bloodshed and the loss, after we have emerged from the rubble, it is time to rebuild. So this reconciliation agreement, this is how we rebuild. So the proposed law, I'll pop this into the chat. This is what we are proposing. It is that no Athenian shall remember the past wrongs of the 30 tyrants or their associates or file any lawsuits against them. And we support this. We are putting this out there. We are trying to get this passed because Athens must move forward. We must rebuild our society as brothers, no more division, violence, or discrimination. And I say discrimination because us as a group, us oligarchs, we are particularly at risk. We are vulnerable because we don't love democracy. We do not believe that democracy is the best form of government. Yes, we must move ahead so they do not stop us. Precisely. So we as oligarchs, as individuals who run our own mini governments in our businesses and our shops, we think that it's the people with skills that should be running it, not the random people who are selected out of a hat. But as a result of that, a few of our oligarch brethren supported the 30 tyrants. And though that number was small, it will not matter to Thrasybulus and his radical Democrats. They see any belief different from their own as dangerous, anyone against democracy as a traitor. And if we don't pass this, there will be a witch hunt. General Thrasybulus just finished a war and his followers are hungry for more blood. And if we are not careful with our time in the Pnyx today, they will find it. We can't let Thrasybulus or anyone else create a civil war. We are too weak already and it would destroy us. Now that is a whole lot of information. So right now, I want us to break down any ideas that are confusing, talk through strategy. What do we think? What are we thinking, oligarchs? What's up, Susan? What do you have for us?
Well, I was wondering about the meaning in the reconciliation agreement that no one is allowed to remember events to do with the 30 tyrants. Maybe this is simply a question of vocabulary, but people remember within their hearts and minds, and we can't stop that. Or what is our intent to say no public commemorative events? Is that what we mean? And why do we propose such a thing?
Well, we propose that holding these ideas in your hearts and minds, we can't control what people have in their hearts and minds, but you're not allowed to act on it. Because if you act on that, you're acting out of revenge. If you're holding events, or if you're saying to your buddy at the docks, hey, remember when this guy killed this guy, that just brings more negative sentiment, and we need to reunite and not really have that negativity in Athens' lives. We want to move forward. It's a negative event from our past, and we just want to not even waste the brain power of trying to hold on to the toxicity of the past. Yes.
It seems to me that
reconciliation is not something that would just appeal to oligarchs, but it would certainly appeal to Democrats as well.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think that's a really great argument to make in on the floor. And I actually have some quick questions. If we enter the Pnyx and someone says that oligarchs are on the side of the 30 and can't be trusted, do we have any responses for that? If we're in the Pnyx and someone says that, what do we do? What do we say? Yes, Sue. Sue, do you have access? Oh, great.
Yes. Oh, hi. Sorry. I was muted for a while. The first thing I would say is, based on the brief that I've read, not all oligarchs have direct connections to the 30 tyrants. So if some of them can pitch stories of how they were negatively affected by the 30 tyrants rule, that could help.
Yeah. And I want you guys to know that as much as this is an academic, intellectual event, this is where we are letting that theatrical river run, because you are not just Barnard Reunion attendees now. You Marcalius or Crito, you have wives and servants that depend on you. You have brothers that died in the Peloponnesian War. And a specific really fun way to do this, what my favorite part of class was, is that when we go back into the assembly, yes, people will be called on and speaking in discussion, but don't be afraid to use that chat. If someone says something you don't agree with and you think Zeus would smite them for that, feel free to tell them that you think that Zeus would smite them. We are fighting for our lives. We are fighting for the betterment of our city, and we must use our voice, whether it is through our argument at the Pnyx or through some very aggressive chats. Feel free to, because what you're doing is for the betterment of Athens. And Free, did you want to say something to the argument of what do we say?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for mentioning that about the for the chat when we go back. I was also going to say another tactic is, if they accuse us of being with the 30 tyrants, deny. Where's the evidence? What do you mean? You can't just throw an accusation that us oligarchs are all with the 30 tyrants, or some of us are. No, we are trying to move forward. We're trying to not dwell on the past. So that is not allowed. No, there's no evidence for that. So that's something to do.
That's marvelous. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's such a good argument to make. What if the conversation turns towards democracy and how anyone who doesn't like democracy is a traitor or something? If we start talking about democracy, what do we do? Yes, hop in.
I would say pivot to stability and talk about how stability benefits society. We just went through this trauma of the Peloponnesian War and just sort of change the subject. So because stability versus democracy is kind of like it's a debate that we can have a strong position on.
Definitely. And who knows stability more than us? We run businesses, and we've run these businesses and these farms all our lives. We know how it works. Let me see if there's anything I want to confirm before we head into. I want to remind you all, be rowdy in the chat. Be rowdy. Do not be afraid. And likewise, we are fighting for the soul of Athens today. We fight to save our fair city, to prevent civil war, and protect the livelihood of ourselves and our brethrens. So who among us will use their voice and fight?
Me.
Yes. I know. I burned a little candle today, and I offered an offering at the Temple of Athena, and I know that she will smile upon us in our debate, in our discussion. And if there's any questions or technical issues at all, let someone know, let me know. If you have any questions during where it's like, wait, I completely forgot what that is, feel free to send me a message. I think we are heading back in, but just know that there's no way the oligarchs can fail. I just spoke to Zeus right now. He just told me there's no way for us to fail. So hold that knowledge with you. as we bravely enter the Phoenix for our democratic discussion. So we can head back into that main room. Good luck, everybody. I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.